Hi, my name's Giraffe Reese. Thanks for stopping by. I've been wanting to do more game reviews lately. I've been having trouble picking a game, though. I don't just review whatever game I'm playing at the moment. I like to find a game with meat. I like to find a game with something really special to talk about. You know, I could pick a billion games that all taste like chicken, but I'm more interested in the subtle, off-fishy flavor of alligator. Luckily, the universe kind of sent me a signal on what I should review. I was just driving through my neighborhood and I drove right by the ancient ruins of the fallen empire, Blockbuster, which is now a judo studio for some reason. It kind of pissed me off. My parents always told me not to do my taekwondo kicks in the Blockbuster, and now everyone gets to do judo? That shit ain't fair. And as I was driving past, I got hit with this massive wave of nostalgia. I spent so much of my childhood in these game rental stores, just thinking, just browsing, going home, and just being disappointed with games usually. So I decided I have to review a game I rented as a child. That would be great. But then it hit me.
Oh my god, he's dead? No!
I didn't remember any games I rented as a child. To set the scene a little bit, most of my childhood games came from one place, Game Crazy. This was a minor competitor for GameStop back in the day. I think it was actually owned by Hollywood Video, a Blockbuster competitor. It was right next to the Fred Meyers my parents did grocery shopping at, so they would just drop me and my brother off at the Game Crazy while they shopped, and we would just dick around. We'd play the Guitar Hero demos they always had set up. I spent hours browsing the walls, the glass cases of all the Game Boy Advance cartridges, just thinking, wow, this game looks so great, this cover art is so cool, and then taking it home and honestly only playing it for like 2 weeks and then trading it in, which was the style at the time. But because I spent so much of my childhood buying games, playing them for 2 weeks, and then trading them in, I don't think I burned in specifically which games I owned and which games I rented, because I kind of did just rent a lot of games from the Game Crazy, if you think about it. I went stir crazy for no reason on this. How could I not remember a single game I rented as a child? I spent so many hours in the Blockbuster and Hollywood Video combined. The only one that was sticking out that I'm fairly certain I rented was Dragon Ball Z Sagas. I really didn't want to touch that one, so I kept looking. I went so crazy thinking on this, I actually looked up what games did Blockbuster Video offer for rent. Didn't get any results, but I did try and look into that just to give me a clue. I had nothing. I had no breadcrumbs. I had already eaten them because I'm overweight. What games did I rent? Where could I find this knowledge that I wanted? I actually put my trust in the hands of online video game article writers. These are the idiots that call Ocarina of Time the best RPG of all time, even though it's not really an RPG. These people are dumb, and I trusted them because I was so desperate just to find any game I could rent. I found top 100 hidden gems of the PS2 era lists, and I'm just browsing those things thinking, oh, at some point I'm gonna have this lightning flash eureka moment, and it just never. Oh my god. I get it. Yu-Gi-Oh! The Falsebound Kingdom for the Nintendo GameCube. I rented you. I played you. You were awful! You were a terrible video game. I did not like playing you at all. I regretted that rental. But now you've returned to me when it mattered most. Yu-Gi-Oh! In its inception was actually not supposed to be the Duel Monsters game. It was supposed to be a game with dozens to hundreds of these card games, different gambling games, Saw-style tests of wills that the titular character Yugi and his friends would have to somehow learn and overcome that week's challenges. But Duel Monsters was cool. People caught on to that for some reason, and so that's what stuck, and that's what became the series that we know. But the video games, weirdly, like they stuck with the original concept. There was an era, late PS1 and PS2 era, where they just took the Yu-Gi-Oh brand and made all kinds of different games with them. Unfortunately, no like 3D hack and slash or fighting games. That would have been sick. No, instead, it's a bunch of different versions of like offbeat strategy tactics games utilizing the Yu-Gi-Oh cards. So you get games like Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories, which is a card game, just incredibly different from Yu-Gi-Oh! You got Yu-Gi-Oh! The Duelists of the Roses, which is like a tactical RPG. It's very strange. And the Falsebound Kingdom was definitely made in that era. But let's back up a bit. When I talk about games, I like to start the most surface level. I go top to bottom, going as surface level to as deep as possible on video game discussion. So let's ask the audience, what is the most surface level aspect of a video game? Graphics? Wrong, little Timmy! You ain't immune to propaganda. The answer is branding. That's right, branding. That's the most surface level aspect of a video game. No one played this game because of the Falsebound Kingdom part. They played it for the Yu-Gi-Oh part. If this was tanks and helicopters, no one would play this game. If this was a generic mech tactics game, some people would think about it sometimes, but only because it has that little U, G, and O at the top of the box is it a cult classic that many people consider a hidden gem. And I'm here to tell you, it might be a hidden gem, but it's like citrine or something. It's pretty to look at, but it's not very valuable. So let's start at the branding. Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh's brand at this point was very hot. This was the children's collectibles era. This was Pokemon. This was Tamagotchi, or maybe the tail end of it. This was also like Beanie Babies era. Like Beanie Babies were still hot, so even the boomers could have some fun. This was the gotta catch 'em all era of Western culture. Yu-Gi-Oh! Was a big part of this, and I was in on Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not just that nostalgic thing I did as a kid. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a part of my life. I've been in and out of Yu-Gi-Oh! My entire life since I first watched the 4Kids anime. At a very surface level, this game immediately appeals to me. I have to give it credit for that. The fact that it is Yu-Gi-Oh! Immediately draws my eye to it in a way that, you know, Strategy Mech Battler 5 simply would not. But now we can actually get to the game, and we can talk about the graphics and music and plot. Very surface level, and it's kind of a mixed bag. Graphics, depending on the screenshot you're looking at, you'll probably think it's terrible. All the graphics are really, really bad looking, like Nintendo DS quality graphics. But then the monsters look incredible. This is probably the best the Yu-Gi-Oh! Monsters would look in a video game for a decade, 2 decades. I don't know what came out after this. They look great. Really good, high quality 3D models for the time, really detailed attack animations, and all of them, they've got their personality. They're not like soulless Pokemon T-posing in the air. They look like the card art come to life. You can't hate on that, even if the rest of the game kind of looks like a plank of wood. Music, there's not much to say. Yu-Gi-Oh!, aside from its like first opening, it's not really a memorable soundtrack. So the music is forgettable, unfortunately. It does its job. And the plot, well, it's there. An ex-Kaiba Corp employee is working on something big, and the main characters all get trapped in this digital world. If you die in the game, you die for real. You have to take control of the scenario. But instead of dueling, you're doing something else. You're not dueling your way through this medieval warfare, which would be equally stupid. No, you're actually taking command of the monsters themselves to do real physical battle. Very similar to how the card game was depicted in the anime in the Pharaoh's time, you know, where they had the giant stones that summon monsters, and then the monsters just straight up actually fight. It's not card rules. That is cool. I will not fault this game for going, hey, get all this card game shit out of my face. Let's do real monsters battling and you taking control of them. I'm in on that. Which takes us to our next tier. I mean, this isn't like an iceberg video, but I'm kind of describing it as one. Genres. We can't talk about how good the game is until we know what the game is. And the game is weird, so I really have to talk about this real quick. Yu-Gi-Oh! The Falsebound Kingdom is a real-time strategy tactics game, but combat is carried out in turn-based JRPG fashion. It's weird. It's a unique game. I can't imagine there's anything similar to it even to this day. But premise-wise alone, I ain't mad. I ain't mad. I've always liked the concept of one of these turn-based games, kind of similar to chess, or you could imagine Fire Emblem, where the combat is more in-depth, a la first-person shooter chess. So the way this game pans out is the characters are called like commanders, and they're basically teams. And the teams are filled with 3 Yu-Gi-Oh cards, which are your troops that you'll use to fight the JRPG battles with. So basically, you get 2, 3, even 4 JRPG teams that you get to move around the map in RTS fashion. The objectives are usually very simple. You have your command outpost, the enemy has their command outpost. You need to get your troops over to their command outpost and take it. There are other posts you can capture too, but the objective is pretty much always go capture outpost X, which means you can actually completely ignore every other aspect of the game and just beeline for the finish if you want. That's what the enemy does. No shame if you do that as well, honestly. And that's pretty much it for the RTS elements. It's very simple. Move your troops around in real time, so you set a destination for them and they start moving, and take outposts, complete objective. It's kind of simplistic. When you collide with an enemy troop or collide with a base that is occupied, you engage in the JRPG combat, which is the highlight of the game. It's definitely the better of the two. And it's unique because it's not to the death. All your troops have these resources, these star chips. And the star chips basically, they're turns they get to take. They're a resource that they use up over the course of battle. So you can attack for 1 star chip. You can defend for a star chip. You can wait a turn, do nothing but not extend a star chip. You can use items for a star chip. And thus, you don't battle to the death. You battle until both you and the enemy teams are out of star chips, or to the death. And if you run out of star chips, but both sides are still alive, you bounce off of each other and start removing towards the destination. So sometimes you can actually engage in a fight with someone and then bounce off kind of to a diagonal, and they'll like go past you. You won't re-engage in combat. Also, the game determines if you win or lose the combat based on the amount of damage dealt at the end. So if you lose, you get kicked off farther, and you have a wait time before you can move again, which means if you really want to beat someone down, you just stun them with multiple wins in a row and keep butting heads into them. On paper, these genres kind of work for me. I don't know if it would work for a lot of people, wide general audience appeal. I like it. I like this a lot, actually. I really like the idea of moving my characters around, planning things out like a tactical or strategy game, but then the combat is JRPG based. So even if I screw up, even if I move a troop somewhere I shouldn't have, even if the game does the thing that every tactical or strategy game does, which is, oh yeah, this level's going really easily. I spawned in 10 troops out of thin air right next to your castle. They always do that shit. These games always do the thing of, oh, surprise reinforcements that you could never possibly have predicted, and honestly, it's not even really your fault that you get punished. Like, what do you get punished for? Playing the game as the game told you to? So even if I get caught in a bad situation, I can fight my way out. There is a way. You can JRPG your way through a lot of bad situations. So far, this game's looking great. I mean, sure, the graphics aren't anything aside from the dual monsters, but the monsters are all you care about. The music doesn't have to be that good, it does its job. I love the brand. This genre really interests me. So let's get to gameplay and talk about where it all goes wrong. Where it all goes wrong is that, first and foremost, the game you are seeing right now is at regular speed. This is how the game runs. It runs slow. It runs very slow, as a matter of fact. It runs so slow, it's painful. It runs so slow, I want to put pins in my eyes because it hurts so bad. I have to play this game on 2, 3, 4 times speed up just so that I can get to the JRPG combat, because there's nothing to do here. It's not turn by turn, it's I set a destination in real time, they move in real time, and now we twiddle our goddamn thumbs and play the waiting game. That's not gameplay. That's not even RTSs don't usually move this slowly. Usually the RTS are a little more action-packed to go along with the fact that it's more hands-off. Right away, the RTS elements reveal themselves to be a horrible idea. Truly, utterly horrible. Objectively, I believe this game should have just been a turn-based tactical RPG with the JRPG combat. I think if you moved around, square grid, move around the map, or even not square grid, to do it like a Valkyria Chronicles situation where it's 3D movement, but it's still turn-based. That's fine. That's fine. Have the little circle that tells you how far you can walk in any direction. That's fine. That's fine. I'm down with that. What I'm not down with is having to sit around waiting for anything to happen. Even if I'm gonna steamroll the enemy team, it's gonna take a long time for me to get to there. This is a steamroller that moves at the speed of a steamroller. And even if we move deeper away from the basic movement being bad, which is not a great place to start, you're not gonna find much good in here. You slowly drift towards fights. So the RTS never really evolves from that. I'm one who talks about progression a lot for video games. Video games need to progress. They need to evolve. They need to start one place and they need to progress somewhere else. This game doesn't do that. This game is slowly drifting towards JRPG fights the entire game. That is it. The RTS elements is literally what direction you send your troops in to go do a JRPG battle. It never evolves from that. And honestly, how could it evolve from that? It has lots of ideas. See, there's night and day cycle in this game. Very slow night and day cycle, but that's besides the point. There's terrain bonuses in this game, which you're probably not going to notice because I can't tell if I'm actually standing on something or not because it's not grid-based. The only RTS element that ever really has an impact is that the forts can have improvements upon them. The only ones that'll ever really get used, though, are the catapult and the anti-air cannon. Which, yeah, they have anti-air cannons in this medieval world. I guess you prepare for what you fight, right? These are improvements that, for you, the player, cost a fair bit of money, and they only go on one fort at a time. So having your entire territory defended with these, it's not going to happen. And the way these work is they draw a circle around the fort, and when an enemy who is either on the ground for the, ground cannon, or in the air for the anti-air cannon, when they cross that line, they take big damage from the cannon. Honestly, I never bothered with these in my personal game, which, by the way, all the footage you're seeing is from a New Game Plus file I have right now. I did New Game on my own time before deciding to do this review, so I've only got footage of New Game Plus. It's fine. The enemies will start using these later on in the game. That's nice. That is a natural increase in difficulty. But they never really have an effect, even on you, the player. They do big damage. Going into a fight after taking one of those cannon shots is not a good idea. But all you have to do is walk past the line, take the big damage, and then use items to heal back to full HP and then enter combat, which is something you can do whenever you want. Moving on to the JRPG side of things, which is where most of the meat is, there's a lot. There's a lot of things affecting JRPG combat. The main issue is that very little of it matters. Like I said, there's terrain bonuses, there's night and day bonuses. Being in a castle can benefit you. Certain commanders have passive abilities that are supposed to help you sometimes. You can give them healing items, revival items to use in and out of combat. You can heal status ailments. You can give them equipable items instead of healing items just to give them a raw boost to their attack. Spellcasters, and only spellcasters, can equip spells that allow them to have special attacks that might cost more star chips, more turns, but might have a bigger effect than just attacking. I'll briefly touch on this right now. Spellcasting is terrible in this game. So only spellcasters can cast spells. Fine. But spellcasters can't all cast spells. Every spellcaster has a spellcasting level. They gain the ability to cast spells. So this spellcaster may be able to cast spells that are labeled, they're all specifically labeled as a level 2 spell, whereas this one might be able to cast up to a level 3 or 4 spell, which are generally going to be stronger. That's well and good, but they can't cast spells right away. They have to get to a high enough level to unlock the ability to cast spells. So if you have a spellcaster, they're probably going to be bad. They're probably going to be a bad, weak teammate, and you're going to have to carry them and just put up with them until they get to a high enough level to cast spells. And at that point, you might discover, hey, this spellcaster can only cast level 2 spells. This thing sucks. Back into the rest of combat, that's not even everything you can do. You can also fuse your monsters. Polymerization becomes an item later on, and specific monsters can fuse together to create unique fusion monsters. These fusion monsters always appear at full HP, they always have a ton of actions, and thus, the main strategy is you fight the fight like normal, getting all the damage you can, and then on your last turn of the monster that has the polymerization item, because it has to be holding the item and able to use it in combat, you fuse your monsters and it's back up to full HP, back up to full star chips so it can act another 5 times, and you just obliterate the enemy team. It's that easy. This game has different routes you play through. They're not really different, they're just the different characters' stories. I mean, like I said, you're slowly drifting towards the JRPG combat. The maps really don't matter, ever. But after you beat these routes, the final boss of each route using Egyptian god cards, who, spoilers, the final boss of a Yu-Gi-Oh game uses Egyptian gods, who'd have thunk it? You get that Egyptian god for your New Game Plus cycle. But the Egyptian god isn't a card you put on your team, it's a card you give to a member of your team, like polymerization. So it's kind of a get-out-of-jail-free card where, oh, my team's getting messed up, let me pop Slifer so that my team disappears, and then I just obliterate the enemy team with Slifer, and then I can heal up out of combat. And then monsters have more passive effects. There are monsters that have a chance of status ailment on their hits. Monsters all have different stats. They have different types. And thus those types can affect what equipables they can get. They can affect what spells and abilities affect them. There's a lot of things going into this JRPG combat. I can't say I dislike the JRPG combat ideas very much at all, because I don't. I really like it, as a matter of fact. The gameplay being slow and a little clunky and weird and unintuitive at points, that's not what ruins this game. What ruins this game is opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is something I have to talk about quite a bit contractually, because I paid a lot of money for my accounting degree. I have to use this knowledge somewhere. Forgive me. I'm sorry. Opportunity cost is the simple concept that when you take one action, you lose the opportunity, the opportunity is costed to do something else. So it's the Matrix thing. Red pill, blue pill. If you take the blue pill, you can no longer take the red pill, and thus your opportunity cost is the red pill. It's also similar to, imagine someone handing you $1 or $5. If you take the $1 bill, you still profit. It's still good. You still did something valuable. You took $1. But your opportunity cost was $5, meaning what you gained was less valuable than what you could have gained. So opportunity cost is used in business a lot to dissect ventures, investments, and it's very applicable to video games as well, because when you press one button, you didn't press the other button. It's as simple as that. In this game, say you have a spellcaster and you use a spell that's trying to do a poison status ailment on the enemy team. That's good. That's valuable. That kills the enemy team. That progresses the state towards your victory. But what's the opportunity cost there? Is the opportunity cost having a different teammate with a bunch of equipped items to boost its attack really high and just instantly kill other members of the enemy team? Is that the opportunity cost? Yeah, it kind of is. And that's the crux of how this game falls apart. Every option in the game is cool in concept, it just doesn't provide enough value to outweigh attacking. This is a problem JRPGs have struggled with since the dawn of time. You have all these options. The thief has steal. You have spellcasting. Final Fantasy, the Dragoon has the jump and dive ability. But is it more valuable than just hitting attack? Is it more valuable than just mashing the attack button? Look at Pokemon. Is Growl more valuable than Tackle? Is it? You have to take these opportunity costs into account. And in some games, it's legitimately good. I am a big fan of Darkest Dungeon, a game full of this opportunity cost analysis where the game comes out really favorably because a lot of the options are valuable and applicable in different situations, but you gotta evaluate that yourself in the situation. This game completely falls flat on that. It's pretty much always best to load up your team with high damaging monsters, give them equipable items if possible so that they can attack for even bigger, stupider damage, and just attack. I never used spellcasters. I never even got a spellcaster a high enough level to use their spells. I tried a few times, but I guess the level's higher than I was expecting it to be because I never got one. So I just spent the entire game one or two shotting enemies with crazy high damage, using the same teams over and over again, and that's it. Later into the game, you get into polymerization, and that adds a wrinkle to all this that I do like. But think of all the things I'm not using. Am I paying attention to night and day? No. Am I paying attention to terrain? No. Am I paying attention to spellcasters? No. Am I paying attention to monster type? No. Status ailments? No. Am I fortifying my forts? No. Am I spreading out to capture all the enemy forts? No. Even the enemies understand opportunity cost. At the start of most games, they will all just make a beeline for your fort. They might spread out to conquer forts first, but the majority of the enemy force is going to just be a straight line to your fort. Even they understand the opportunity cost. Just ignore all of this. Just ignore everything going on and just go and win the JRPG battles with overwhelming violence. The opportunity cost does not weigh out. Spending the time raising a weak spellcaster so that you can get some low-level spell that won't be as impactful as just having big goddamn damage, it doesn't math out, and thus you don't really do it. This game also weirdly has time limits. Every level has time limits. You know, it's not turn limits or anything, it's time limits, so it's a little more flexible. I never had an issue with this. The only map where time seemed to be an actual issue was this really random one. I wish I had footage of it. I almost failed that mission. It would have been the only mission I actually failed because I was dicking around trying to conquer all the forts, and I realized, oh god, I'm already almost out of time, so I had to make a beeline for the end. Basically, I could have won whenever I wanted, but I was just dicking around trying to grind some XP and money, and I almost ran out of time. That's the only level. So you have this whole time mechanic that is linked to the night and day cycle, and only one level did it actually get tight. You know, if it was tighter on other levels, maybe that would have been interesting. Maybe I would have not been so over-leveled and overpowered by the end of the game. And that kind of takes us into the final and deepest tier of my analysis for this game. Meta. What could this game have done better? I've been pointing out all the aspects I think are really bad and don't really work, but I don't think they're necessarily bad ideas. I think they just needed to math out better. Spellcasters really should get their spellcasting ability a lot earlier. Again, I tried leveling up a handful of spellcasters. I never got spellcasting. I don't know what level I'm supposed to reach. What level do you want me to reach for Sangan to be able to cast poison? I don't get it. The cannons are a good idea, but the whole flying and on the ground thing kind of ruins it. It should probably be more of a choice, where it's either flying or ground. You can't have both cannons on the same fort, so you have to pick and choose. And thus, if you pick ground cannon, the flying troops can just come in and get full value easily. The items are also very weird because they're limited use like in Fire Emblem, but they're actually infinite because they're only limited use per mission. So the blue medicine heals a small amount of HP, was it 8 times? But that's 8 times per mission. If you completely use up the blue medicine, the next mission it'll be back up to 8. So later on in the game when you get things like red medicine that heals way more, when you eventually get medicine that heals all, medicine that heals everyone on the team, you can just use those as much as you want. You just use this medicine as much as you want, and there's no repercussions. What's the repercussion of fully healing your party and then sweeping over at full health every opponent? Health is basically not an issue in the game because you have so much healing items that get you to full by the end of the game when the damage is highest. If you really want to dig into this game and improve it, it's not as simple as speeding things up. You really need to make the math more threatening. You need to make the spells have a bigger impact. You need to make spellcasters a bigger thing. If you really want to make all these mechanics work, you just need to make them math. You just need to numerically prove that doing this would be better than just attacking. Now, this could be done by just nerfing attacks. You can just put on 3 equipable items on your monster and have it hit for crazy damage, like 2-shotting most things in the game. You could nerf that. You could maybe have 1 equipable slot per monster and then have the 3 item slots for consumables, maybe. But I think it'd be a lot easier to just buff the spells. Spellcasters need their spells earlier. The spells need to have a bigger impact. Polymerization has a huge impact. Make spellcasting like that. Make having a spellcaster on your team really impactful. Like, that poison the spellcaster is going to do, have it be a bigger deal. The night and day cycle doesn't really matter, but all you need to do is make it so that nocturnal monsters are really, really threatening at night. You get a sizable buff, not a minor one, a sizable buff that would make you think twice about, I really need to take that base right now, but it's got a nocturnal, because you can always see the enemy team. I guess I should preface, you can always see the enemy team ahead of time, so you can kind of evaluate. You can't see what items they're holding, unfortunately, but you can see ahead of time, oh, that's a nocturnal monster. I should be wary of that. Oh, that's a spellcaster. I should be wary of that. And eventually you'll learn, oh, those 2 monsters can fuse. I should be wary of that. All of these things just need to have an impact similar to polymerization, which is the only good mechanic in the game. When polymerization becomes common in the later game, that is the mechanic, and there's ways to cheese and play around it that I really, really like. For instance, you can run away from battles. So one of my favorite tactics is you go into a combat that has a particularly difficult fusion monster, and you try and immediately murk one of the fusion monsters. Because both monsters need to be on the field. If one of the fusion monsters die, even if the other monster is the one holding the polymerization and can use the item, it can't fuse because the monster it needed to fuse with is dead. So you beeline for that monster and try and kill it. And if you fail, I run away from combat and I just come back into the combat afterwards, and the monster that, was the polymerization target I was trying to kill, it's probably going to be at lower HP. And so they might waste turns trying to heal that monster, miss their opportunity to polymerize, and then I can kill it and avoid having to fight a fused monster, which again is really freaking strong. Like, cheese tactics like that, that's really great. That's why polymerization is a good mechanic in this game. You just need the other things to have that kind of impact. It's not as simple as speeding up the RTS, but that would be nice. Just saying, that would be nice. terrain should be clearly defined. A lot of RTSs or other tactics games, even if they're not grid-based, you can kind of hover your mouse and like get a few text boxes describing what you're hovering over, like, oh, mountain tile, like Civ. Civ does that, although that is tile-based. I guess that was a bad example. But if fighting a hill monster while it's on a hill was enough to scare you to take a different action, that would be a great mechanic. If you see a monster on a hill and you go, oh god, I can't fight that on a hill, I have to either lure it away or I have to take a completely different path, that's great. That is great. That's opportunity cost. You're weighing your options, you're using your brain, you're making tactical choices instead of just the same choice every time because it's the obviously right choice because all the other options are so bad. That's what would really have benefited this game the most. Coming back to this, playing this game with speed up honestly makes it pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. Playing this game as I did as a child, playing this game at 1x speed, just don't try it. I respect your time too much to recommend you try that. But if you play on speed up, it's not bad. The big problem with the RTS is that it wastes your time. I still think it should just be like tile-based, like a Fire Emblem moving around the map and doing JRPG combat. I think that would be perfectly fine and perfectly reasonable. Maybe have some advantages for like, oh, you initiated combat, you have like a higher initiative than the other side. Because speed is also weird in this game, because it seems to be random, which I'm not that opposed to. Because no matter what level your monsters are, what type they are, the moves kind of go randomly. Like one turn you'll go first, and other turns the enemy will go first. So it's clearly got a bit of RNG determining it. Even if they're level 1 and you're level 40 Blue Eyes White Dragon, they can go first sometimes. They can just go first. It happens. So if initiating combat or being in a fort gave you higher initiative and that was like a tangible thing you could see, would really help. If being in the forts granted you a bigger advantage, that might be good. That would make taking forts a little harder. I always personally really like Civ because it's really hard to take cities in Civ. Taking a city in Civ means you need to have a sizable advantage in the taking the fort procedure. If taking a fort in Yu-Gi-Oh! Falsebound Kingdom was more difficult and wasn't just, it's just a normal battle that takes place on a castle wall setting, maybe I'd think twice about ramming my main character into it 3 times in a row and just steamrolling. Maybe I'd think twice. An idea I had while playing that I think is actually pretty baller would be what I call the territory bonus, where you control forts and those forts have an area of influence, pretty big area of influence, and while you're in your area of influence, you get some passive buffs. And thus, spearheading into enemy territory is not universally that good of an idea because they're going to have territory bonus and you aren't. And thus, slowly taking the smaller forts and working your way towards the enemies, that's the shiz. That's what you do, and that works great. Another big issue with this game that I think could just be removed, deploying multiple teams costs money. Think of that, it costs money to go into battle. Just crazy to me. The more teams you have, and the better your monsters, the more expensive it is to deploy. But that just ensures you're only going to launch with 2 or 3 teams, and you're going to completely ignore everyone else. You get like the option to launch with 8 people sometimes, if I recall. You can launch with so many teams, but why would you? It's just wasting money and they're lower leveled. So you're really being shoehorned in to doing the thing games want to avoid. Isn't that weird? The developers shoehorn you in to just using the one Pokemon throughout the entire game. When I was a kid, I did beat the entire game with just Charizard. I did that in Pokemon Fire Red. I beat everything. I beat the Elite Four. My Charizard was like level 75 to 80, if I recall. I just beat the whole game. Oh, so Misty's water type? Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit? I'll just grind until I'm strong enough to one-shot. Oh, freaking Elite Four has water ice? Whatever. Fire's neutral that. Who cares? This game shoehorns you into that playstyle. I straight up had Kaiba, I had Pegasus, and I had Mokuba. That's it. anytime I had all 3 of those, I wouldn't even look at the other people. And they always had the same team. They just had the best 9 monsters. If I got a good monster, I would replace, and it would just like move down the line from Kaiba to Mokuba and then to Pegasus. But yeah, that's it. That's really, really it. You just have your 3 teams, you get all the XP, you get over leveled, and I don't think that's really valuable. I think you should just have all your teammates so that at the very least the XP gets spread. And that would probably help you get your spellcasters too, as if the XP was spread around a little more and you had to go in all these different directions. Because everything about this game shoehorns you in to just going for the main enemy base. And thus all the XP goes to a small strike force that will always be over leveled and always do the same thing. But if you had to spread out and take all these different forts, you'd have to spread out the XP, which means you wouldn't be as over leveled, which means you'd actually be playing more tactically. I think this game has some great ideas. It just needs to math out better. I'm kind of glad I came back to it though. Again, playing on speed up, it's not that bad. Playing on speed up, you kind of just skip the RTS section, and I mean that. You literally skip the RTS section by putting the speed up really high, and then you get into the JRPG combat and you just do that. So it's kind of just a gauntlet of JRPG battles with some, tactics of deciding when and where these battles happen. But it's just the JRPG battles. It's just steamrolling. And it's still fun. It's still getting to see your Yu-Gi-Oh! Monsters from your childhood in glorious 3D, really good 3D again, and doing their signature attacks and fusing into the cooler monsters and summoning the goddamn Egyptian god on a level 1 dog. It's fun. I really enjoyed my time with this game, but I would not say it's good. I think it needs a lot of improvements, a lot of work, but what do you think? Let me know in the comments if you think differently. Let me know if you've even played or heard of this game before. If you played any of the other weird Yu-Gi-Oh games, let me know what you feel about those in comparison to this one. Thanks for stopping by, and take care.
Well, actually, press B.
Press B.
Oh, yeah. The light comes on. And it makes a nice ting. Right, a ting noise. You guys ting. There, look, ting. That's it.
That's it?
Yeah.